Our Village ZBA, you are live.
Good morning and welcome to the Village of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals agenda, Friday, December 8th, 2023. Again, I'd like to thank LTV Studios for hosting us. Before we get started, we have just one more announcement today. Our esteemed village clerk is retiring after 44 years of being with the village. Ms. Pamela Bennett will be missed by the board along with all the professionals and village residents that she worked with over the years. And we'd like to wish Pam well in her retirement and happy, healthy new year.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So moving along, we have minutes of October 13th, 2023. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have two extensions of time requests. Maximus LLC, 54 Georgia Close Road, and Eric and Lori Blatstein, 211 Lily Pond Lane. And we do have supplemental determination pursuant to a court order, 64 WE Acquisition LLC, 64 West End Road, to be renoticed for a public hearing. And we
Mr.
have,
Chair?
yes,
Can I just speak to that?
yes, please, Mr. Rose.
That issue in light of the letter that was received by the board? And the letter to the board regarding 64 West End Road LLC, in the letter to the board requesting postponement of the discussion of the matter at 64 West End Road, the attorney makes the unusual statement seeking my recusal from participation in the consideration of the matter when it comes before us next. In view of this public demand, I think it's necessary for me to state publicly to my colleagues and for the record that I have no financial connection to the property, nor to any of the surrounding properties, that I have no financial relationship to the applicant or their representatives, that I'm unaware of any conflict of interest of any kind on my part with regard to this property or the applicant, nor am I aware of any reason why I should not be able to review and deliberate with my colleagues on this matter strictly on the merits and according to the rules and expectations governing the Zoning Board of Appeals. I've been quite clear, both in public and private, that I believe in general the land use laws of the Village of East Hampton should be taken seriously and should be enforced, especially when violations are egregious, deliberate, and have a noticeable adverse effect on neighboring properties or public spaces, or threaten the character of the village, or degrade the quality of our natural environment. There's nothing in that view that precludes my impartial consideration of particular matters based solely on the facts before us and according to the laws governing each subject. If there's any legitimate reason why I thought it appropriate to recuse from sitting on an item, I'd be the first to bring it to the attention of the chairman and our council. And if there's some reason about which I'm unaware, I welcome being informed about it. That said, I will not be discouraged from fulfilling my responsibility to participate impartially on this board's deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. We're moving on to the determinations for today. We have five. Mr. McMullen?
The first one is to adopt the negative declaration for the application of Jewish Center of the Hamptons, 44 Woods Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-8-7-46. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Pam, can you please poll the board?
Mr. McMullen?
Yes?
Mr. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Barris?
Yes.
Ms. Fitzsimons?
Yes.
Okay, the second one is in the application of the Jewish Center of the Hamptons, 44 Woods Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-8-7-46, for a special permit and variances to construct accessory structures is granted with conditions. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Pam, can you please poll the board?
Mr. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Barris?
Yes.
Ms. Fitzsimons?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. O'Connell, can you do the next one, please?
Yes. In the application of Jack and Ruth McSpadden, 138 Main Street and 3 Pondview Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map numbers 301-9-1-19.3 and tax map number 301-9-1-9.27 for an area variance to construct an accessory dwelling unit is denied. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Pam, please poll the board.
Mr. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Fitzsimons?
Yes.
Okay. In the application of Coup LLC, 17 Turbo Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-13-10-3, for an area variance to convert an accessory building containing a garage and pool house into an accessory dwelling unit is granted. May I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Pam, please poll the board.
Mr. O'Connell?
Yes?
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Fitzsimons?
Yes.
Okay, in the application of David and Lisa Walker, 63 Hither Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map number 3014-9-6, to legalize pool equipment and patio is granted. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second, please.
Second.
Pam?
Mr. McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Fitzsimons?
Yes.
We have one adjournment today, Hunting Hospitality LLC, 94 Main Street, January 12th, 2024. And we have the new hearings for today. Pam?
Did you want to do the extension of time for those two? I don't know if you have to act on them or
I think we have,
For which two?
Maximus LLC and Eric and Lori Blatstein.
Oh,
we have to vote on them.
yeah, we should vote on it.
Okay.
So, can I have I assume we give them a year, Tom, is that? Okay, so we'll give them a year extension on Maximus LLC, 54 Georgia Close Road, and Eric and Lori Blatstein at 211 Lily Pond Lane. May I have a motion?
I make a motion on both.
Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Pam.
Application of Eric Ellenbogen, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-4618, for area variances from Chapter 278 zoning to legalize coverage and principal and accessory structures constructed within the required yard setbacks. A 246-square-foot variance is required from Section 278-3A9 to legalize 4,485 square feet of coverage, where 4,239 square feet is the maximum permitted. Variances of 1.6 feet and 1.4 feet are required from Section 278-3A5B to legalize an AC condenser unit located at 8.4 feet from a side yard lot line and a patio located 8.6 feet from a side yard lot line where the required side yard setbacks are 10 feet. A 0.8-foot variance is required from Sections 278-3A4A and 278-3A6 to legalize a residence located 19.5 feet from a side yard lot line where the required side yard setback is 20.3 feet, utilizing the side yard setback relief provisions. The subject property is 18,699 square feet in area and is located at 13 Egypt Lane in Residence District R20. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SECRA.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Pam. I'm Robert Strada.
Pam?
Yes,
Swear.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
sure, of course.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
Robert Strada, 30 Fresh Pond Road, Nemagansett.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you. I just thought I'd provide a little context, because you don't usually see two houses on one lot in the village. So just to remind everyone that this is one of those few of the 27 or 28 properties that conform to the timber frame legislation. So what we had started in 2017 was the restoration of the Hiram Sanford House, the 1822 historic house, which was ultimately awarded a Preservation Society award for the work that we did there. In the process, the owner asked that we submit to the Design Review Board on the 2nd of January 2018 an application. This is a long project, Jim. An application for the construction of a container house, and this is something we did. It was approved a month later, and in the course of putting up this second house on this property, we endeavored to make everything conform. So as you can imagine, I was quite surprised when looking at the final survey that we submitted to the building department as part of our package for CO, that it was not conforming. Now, there were a couple of items on the list that Pam just read, but the one of the most significant importance is the building itself. And I just want to describe the site that we were working with at the time. So essentially, this is a swamp. I mean, this is a very difficult place to work. And when Drew Bennett reminded me of that when we first started working on it, he had done the house behind it, which is on 50th, and was letting me know exactly what the conditions were going to be like. So we had to sink 25 piles into the earth to support the foundation. The foundation became like this massive bathtub so that nothing would penetrate it. And in the course of creating all of this, the pile driving, the concrete, the erecting of these prefabricated structures, we now find ourselves inches over the side yard setback. And that's really what I'm here looking for relief on. There are a couple of items that Pam mentioned, like an air conditioning condenser or some excess patio steps or panels. We can fix that. There's no need to even have that on here. But the way that evolved, just so I can give you an explanation, think of what it was like in August. We're thinking, oh, we want to get on the September agenda of the, what were we thinking? So we put everything on that was on the survey that was non-conforming, thinking we'd somehow manage to get on the September hearing date, or maybe even the October hearing date. And there was no November hearing. So here we are in December. So my focus is the few inches that were over on the structure, and primarily that's it.
And you'll make everything else legal?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's doable.
Yep.
We were
Okay.
just in a bit of a, well, John, what happened was we were essentially stunned to see that we weren't conforming on this structure. Now, Jim's laughing because, you know, I'm mentioning 2018, 2019. How long does it take to finish a project? You know, well, the containers came from China. And then we had COVID. And then we found that the containers did not conform to the steel spec with the engineer. And then, I mean, if you lived in this neighborhood, you would be pulling your hair out. Joel, the next door neighbor, was quite a gentleman about all of this, as were the folks behind us on 50th. But the reality is, I've never been on a project that's taken 5 years to complete. This is the one. And in fact, I've never really, except on a few occasions, appeared before a zoning board of appeals. I mean, my scope usually takes me in front of the DRB or the ARB. So yes, to answer your question, John, we will make the other things conform, but we are stuck with these few inches being over on the side yard.
On just the structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any board members?
Just looking at this application, my first concern were the condensing units, as well as I believe somebody else on the board has the same concerns, to hear that they're going to correct all of that stuff and just bring the variance to just the one variance for the structure. I thank the applicant, and I don't have a problem with it.
Thank you.
I feel the same way. Actually, it's in my notes as well.
Anyone from the audience?
One question, will you be
Sure.
amending the application?
Yes.
Okay.
We shouldn't be here in the first place.
Motion to close the hearing? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Hold on, I gotta back up here. Do we close the hearing? Sorry, Tim. Did we close the hearing? Do we leave it open until he amends the application, or?
Well,
He can make a representation on the record that it's so amended so that the scope of the request is solely for the side yard setback.
I do so plan to make that change so that it's solely for the side yard setback of the structure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it doesn't need to be
Okay.
a change.
Yeah.
So we can close it.
You're making the change now orally,
Yes,
and you have the authority to do that.
I do.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So motion to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on, Pam, to the next.
Application of 55 La Forest LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-1268, for a variance from Chapter 278 zoning to make alterations and expand a pre-existing third story. A variance is requested from Section 278 2B1 to make alterations and enlarge a pre-existing third story by 205 square feet, where 2 stories are the maximum number of stories permitted. The subject property is 39,951 square feet in area and is located at 55 La Forest Lane in Residence District R160. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SECRA.
Is the applicant present?
Please state your name and address for the record.
Britton Bistrian, 21 Nappy Harbor Road, Amagansett.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. As stated, I'm Britton Bistrian. I'm here representing 55 La Forest Lane LLC, owner of the property at 55 La Forest Lane. That goes. It's improved currently with a single-family residence. It predates the adoption of zoning in East Hampton Village and has 3 stories since its original construction. It's estimated to be around the turn of the century. The best date we probably have is around 1890 that it was originally constructed. It has once been in front of this board relating to the accessory building, and there are no variances or nonconformities on the residence other than legal third story. If any of the board members visit the site, you'll see that it recently undertook a large renovation addition to modernize the home, but maintain its historical character. The owners felt strongly that the street facade should continue to address the public in the same manner it has for over 100 years, and that the addition should be focused at the rear of the property, and felt strongly that the house shouldn't be torn down, and invested significant money to preserve and restore the residence in its original grandeur. It should be noted that there was a handful of nonconformities on the property. They weren't variance relief, but it was from the predate zoning. All of those, mostly, it was all the accessory structures. They were either removed or moved into conforming locations. So in the process of this recent reconstruction, we did eliminate a lot of dimensional nonconformities. The request in front of you is a small request to be able to use 205 square feet of the existing third floor. Currently, it's an attic space, or it would be an attic space, but we'd like to use it for living space. The house, and specifically the third floor, is up to date with current life safety code, including a full sprinkler system and egress windows from every bedroom, which did not previously exist prior to the recent renovation. This 205 square feet would not increase the number of rooms in the residence. It would only extend an existing bedroom. The benefit to the applicant would be significant, as it would allow the bedroom to have 3 additional windows for light and air into the space, and would have no impact to the neighborhood, as the building envelope and the shell of the structure already exists, and it's not changing from the current conditions. If anybody visited the site, and also reviewed the file, part of what I believe, I don't know if it was Tom or Billy, asked to sort of identify for the board, where's the area of work? And that's key, because you can't see the area of work, because it will, whether the board grants the variance or not, the exterior of the structure will not change. I don't have anything further to add, but I'd be willing to answer any questions from the board.
I'd like to go to the building inspector here
Okay,
for
I'll step aside.
a quick. Can make some comments on.
Sure. Thank you, Tom Prieto, for the village. So basically, in 2022, a building permit was issued to renovate or reconstruct a third floor volume that already existed on the home, which is non-conforming. So an area that was supposed to remain as attic ended up becoming habitable space. And basically, that's what they're looking to legalize. It's
Any board members have any comments, questions for?
And there was communication with them that they understood that
They understood that from the beginning. Yeah, I met with the
it wasn't to be
with the
expanded.
designer. Yes. Yep.
Any comments? Anybody in the audience like to comment on this? Mr. Bragman?
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can share with Tim. I don't need to look at that.
Good morning, board members. I'm Jeff Bragman, and I represent the Cohen family who live across the street at 82 Akabog Road, which actually at one time had a different address, 55, I believe it was 55 La Forest. I want to go through the chronology of events here and what happened, because I think everything that happened has a direct bearing on the standards for issuance of a variance, and ultimately has a bearing on the overall balancing test that the board is required to employ in deciding what to do about this request for a variance. If you look at Exhibit 1, it's a letter from Tom Priato, a recent letter, but it states the building department's belief that they were very clear prior to the start of this job that there would be nothing added to the pre-existing bedroom on the third floor, and that they made that very clear. If you go to Exhibit number 2, it shows the architectural plans that were submitted on January 10th, 2022. That was shortly before the building permit was issued and construction started. And you can see what in the red circle is the shaded area of the pre-existing bedroom that eventually was demolished. The building permit was number 10958, and it was a very large job. It was a $4.1 million job, plus a $150,000 swimming pool. And the main work was described in a March 6th edition as main housework was described as replacement in kind, and there was no description of third-story work, and it was also characterized as a rehabilitation of an existing structure on page 3 of the receipt that accompanied this note. Exhibit 3 is a Kent Howie email that was forwarded to the architect on May 25th, 2022. And in it, Mr. Howie noted that the addition is expanding a pre-existing non-conforming third-floor bedroom, which is against the village code. So this was several months into the construction, which started January 24th. And then Exhibit 4 is a response from the architect that was handling the job, who said, and I'm quoting, "It is a replacement for the third floor that existed in this same portion that was taken down." So as of May, the applicant and the applicant's agents knew that there was a problem. This is long before the construction continued and eventually completed. On May 25th, Exhibit 5 is another letter from, I neglected to mention something in the prior letter that the architect added, "I was told that it was good as long as I sprinkled the area," okay? So in response, on the same day, almost immediately, Kent Howie said, "They remember the conversation. However, it appears to be a larger volume than what was existing." In other words, it wasn't the sprinklers that was the issue, it was that you were adding to the bedroom, and we told you it was non-conforming. And then he asked if you could sketch the existing dimensions and the proposed dimensions. And then he also asked, has that original bedroom been removed? There was no response to that email. The email chain stops at that point. The next exhibit that I've attached is Exhibit 6, and it's the permit set that was sent in 15 days after that email exchange that was really didn't lead to any kind of resolution. And if you look at page C101, that's the cover sheet. It has the color on it. If you look carefully, you can see that there's an orange-colored area that you can tell that it's the extended bedroom because it has the 2 dormers on it. The previous bedroom did not have any dormers, and that's how you know that that's the extended bedroom. It does not show the existing bedroom that it was replacing, which is smaller. And then if you turn the page, we attached drawing A102, which shows the extended bedroom. And then we also attached, which was a part of this package, drawing S105, which shows the framing plan. To my mind, when you submit a framing plan, it suggests that you haven't finished the framing. The usual course of events is you submit a framing plan before you frame. So this submission suggests that at this point, which is already June 6th, the building wasn't framed. The next exhibit is Exhibit 7. It shows it shows two different aerial photos. The first one is a little bit blurry. It's from April 4th, 2021, and it shows the building before the extension on the third floor bedroom, and you can see that it's smaller and doesn't have any dormers on it. It's easy to tell where it is, or at least it is to me after looking through 300 pages that Pam was nice enough to give us to go through. The second photo is a more recent photo, is taken in May 17th, 2023, after construction, and you can see the difference because it actually has three dormers. There's two dormers on one side and a third dormer on the other side. Meanwhile, the next exhibit is the next communication from the village, in which Kent Howie sent to the architect. This is now 20 days after requesting existing and proposed drawings, and he says, obviously this is some time after their initial email exchange, and he says, refresh my memory, where are we on the third floor? Did you provide drawings showing the existing and proposed dimensions? Subsequent to this, there's another addition to the project. A pool for $150,000 was added. Exhibit 9 is dated much later. We're almost at the end of the year. It's at December 7th, 2022. So this thing started in January, as you recall, and now we're at December, almost the end of the year. And this is a drawing submitted by Millbrook Fire Protection. It's the sprinkler diagram. And again, it suggests that this structure, the extended bedroom, was not fully constructed because they were going to put in the sprinklers. And finally on April, and that's the end of the historic. That's the end of the historic stuff that happened while the construction was ongoing. The point being that this was not an error or an omission. This was something else, and the applicant's agents knew what was going on very early in the application. In fact, January 10th, before they even started building, the building inspector stated, and he repeated in the letter that I started with, that they made it very clear that that bedroom was not to be extended. Well, it was extended. So what happened is, after some time went by, the applicant's agent put in an application for a variance. And that was done in May of 2023. So we're now out of 2022 into year 2023. And interestingly, the application didn't have much explanation in it. What it said was, this is a minor addition to allow an expansion to the exterior windows. So what the applicant's agent represented was that everything except for 53 square feet right at the end of this new extension that they put on, this extended bedroom, everything was legal. They just needed a small variance because there were a couple of windows on the far wall, so they wanted 53 square foot variance. And it was described as a minor addition allowing an expansion to the exterior windows. That's on the application, page 2, item 11. And the comments also indicated that there'd be no visual impacts, not a substantial variance, and that the difficulty was caused by the original construction. And about at that time, my office began investigating to try to figure out what was going on. That that variance application was rescheduled for October of 2023, and in in September of 2023, the applicant's agent wrote to the chairman, Mr. McGurk, and said that there was no change in the elevation of the building. And again, a second letter was sent. This is Exhibit 10 by the applicant's agent to Mr. McGurk, and it reiterated that there was no change to the exterior elevation. But by this time, we had contacted the building department and began to dig through the documents, and the building department confirmed that there was a change to the exterior elevation, and it was an extended bedroom that they were talking about. So then the application was, the applicants were told that they had to change their application. So that's now brings us up to the date of this application, which is not for just 53 square feet, it's for the entire extension, which created a bedroom about which they were on notice from the beginning of the project, and apparently built it anyway. But interestingly, in this current application, the applicant described the space as attic space that they wanted to convert to finished space. But attic space has to be, in reality, we believe that it's habitable space, that they made that the bedroom. It's demonstrated by the fact that in the first zoning application, the applicant only wanted 53 square feet to have the windows for the bedroom. So I think it's obvious from the record, this is not an unfinished attic. It doesn't meet your definition for an attic, because an attic has to be an unfinished space between the ceiling joists of the top story and the roof rafters. And this is a room. This is a habitable room. It's a finished space. It's a finished space between the floor and a ceiling. It's the seventh bedroom in the house. Now, the first standard that you have to look at is, does the variance that they're asking for, secondly, I have to add that we believe that the variance application is incomplete in that it did not include the additional square footage of the dormers. Now, I know that if you don't have more than 5 feet, it's not gross floor area, but from looking at these dormers and judging from the height of the stories, which are 10 feet, we believe that you can stand in the dormers and you can see they're cut out. They actually create additional space on that third floor. It's not a huge amount. It's probably 25 square feet per dormer, so it's 75 square feet, but it should be included as extra square footage. I might also say that the applicant has gotten some benefit from the work that was done, because the bedroom underneath this third story extension they were able to rearrange it and put a fireplace against a wall, and that wall extends upward to where they extended the third story out. So to some extent, by extending this improperly, they have gotten some benefit because they have a nicer arrangement of a master bedroom below. That's something of an aside, but we noticed it when we looked at the plans. So the question is, does it produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties? And I have to contradict the statement that there's no change in the elevations here, because there is a significant change in the elevation, and it runs, what was a small bedroom now runs across the entire view from my client's second story master bedroom, bathroom, actually. And it is impacting. I have some exhibits that'll show you that. Also, there was no mention of the dormers, which are very significant, are significantly intrusive to my clients, because that's what creates the view across the road to their house. So from the Cohen's perspective, it does create an obvious detriment, and the dormers do open an elevated view up into their master bath. And if you look at photo 11, that's a photograph, an image you can see from the towel hanging on the side. That's the master bedroom window, and they're looking out onto the dormers. And the existing bedroom, had it been built lawfully, would not have had any dormers, and it would have been substantially smaller. And, you know, from our position, had the applicant come in and asked permission, I think we'd be in a very different situation in front of this board, because we could argue that an extension would indeed affect us. And, but that would be if permission had been requested instead of forgiveness afterwards. I'm actually not sure if forgiveness has been requested, but they're requesting, without telling you, without getting into how this happened and what the space really is that they want. Obviously, they want to legalize it. And another question is whether the benefit is achievable by a feasible method other than the variance. And I want to talk about this a little later. I'm not going to drag this out too long, but you know, the fact of the matter is we never got a chance. They never took the opportunity to present any evidence about why they needed to expand that bedroom. Was it inadequate? What didn't they like about it? And of course, we didn't get a chance to defend against it, saying it would have affected us. And you know, the question is, you know, how readily would this ZBA have been to grant a significant variance, maybe doubling the size of that bedroom on a third story when it's absolutely prohibited under your zoning code. And I mentioned the benefit that they received by having the relocated fireplace and a larger master bath below. Another question is whether the variances are substantial, and obviously they're not just 53 square feet. This is not just converting attic space to habitable space. It's legalizing something that, as I said, was not an omission and not an error. And plus, the effect of the dormers is significant on us, and they are significantly intrusive. I would definitely be pulling the shades down in the master bath at this point, and it wouldn't have existed, but here we are today. Another one of the standards is it's self-created, is the hardship self-created, and as you know, that isn't, you know, dispositive. It doesn't mean you have to deny, but it's a factor. And in this case, the answer to that is emphatically yes. It is a self-created difficulty because they knew about it. They knew about it early on in February. They had framing diagrams in I think as late as December. And I showed you one of the diagrams in that package with three sets of plans. They were putting the sprinklers in late in the year, so there was a lot of time to fix this. And the village was in communication with them, saying, "Hey, what's going on?" And they never got the documents that they were asking for. And they certainly didn't clarify it, you know, as soon as they found out about it. And then finally, one of the standards is that you're supposed to grant the minimum variance necessary. I want to, just forgive me, I got to run over here. I have some diagrams that I've given you in the package, but I have them in larger scale, and I want to show you them. These are illustrations of view sheds from each of the dormers in two different directions. I guess I can just hand.
Yeah, we can just pass it down.
Two of them.
Just we can pass it down.
You can do it 2 by 2. I don't have, these are just large scale. There are two different diagrams. They're showing lines of sight from each of the dormers, from the two different dormers. And you can see that one of the lines of sight, the master bathroom, and the other line of sight hits the backyard pool area, where obviously privacy is a significant concern. So, you know,
Isn't
this
it,
is
I mean,
an-
it's the front yard pool area. I believe we granted a variance for them to put the pool in the front yard on this, on the Cohen's residence. I think we did.
I don't know about that variance. I can just say that the dormer looks out over their pool and recreation area as well as the master bathroom. So, I mean, the question is, what's to be done here? The board, undoubtedly the board has power to tear the extension down. The extension could be walled off to get it back to the size that it once was. It could allow a smaller expansion of the bedroom. There are many different things it could do. So I wanted to make a suggestion, having spoken to my clients about it, which I think is possibly a happier compromise for the neighbors across the street, and that is if the dormers were torn down and reconstructed on the other side of the building, they're not going to intrude on our privacy. Also, if that were to be done, we would not have any problem with the fact that the bedroom was extended. We're not looking to, be avenging angels here or punish the neighbors, but my clients are concerned about the privacy aspect. This is a $4.2 million job, something like that. And while it's inconvenient and there will be some expense involved, it can be done. And that's the route that I would encourage the board to take as a compromise. It's an unfortunate situation. And the only other thing I wanted to add is even had this been a mistake or an oversight on the part of the village, which it was not, errors or mistakes and omissions by the village, as you're probably aware, are always correctable, because the law of the state of New York favors enforcement of zoning, and it authorizes harsh penalties for noncompliance, no matter, even if it were a building inspector error. The courts of the state have permitted as harsh a remedy as demolishing the part of the building that doesn't comply with zoning. And the reason is that overall the policy of enforcing your zoning is more important than even a fairly substantial financial burden on an applicant. So I wanted to end with something that I thought was a bit of a compromise. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but it would alleviate the concerns that my clients have, largely occasioned by the dormers.
Thank you, Mr. Bergman. Board members?
I'd just like to ask the applicant and the building inspector to speak to the matters raised by the neighbors. First the applicant, then comment by the...
So I didn't get into the narrative on the history of this project, but now I feel like it's been brought up, and I had no idea about Mr. Bragman's issues or his client's issues. I would have been happy to meet with him and not waste the board's valuable time on this, but unfortunately, we're here. So the agent I was not involved in this project from its inception. I know some of the board members know me, but my training is, I'm obviously from a large developing family, and my training as an architect. My career currently is more land use. I also sit as the village planner for West Hampton Beach. So I come at construction from all sorts of angles, a lot of site management, a lot of permitting, things like that. So I would say that I'm pretty well versed in architecture. I have a degree in it. This was a rocky start to the project, at least for me, because David Tosher, who's the design professional, he fell ill while this project was under construction. He got the building permit, started the project, and has a very bad illness, and called me and just said, I need some help. And he said, I have this project under construction, and it's framed, and we need to go for, we need to go for a variance for we would like to go for a variance for the third floor attic space to become habitable space, so we can have access to these windows that are already there. So I said, absolutely, I'll prepare the variance application. This public hearing, I believe, Pam can help me here, I believe it was originally scheduled for August. It's been postponed a few times because of his illness. And obviously he's not here today. He's immune compromised, so he can't be in public. So that's a lot of the delays were on that factor. And the 53 square foot, that is completely on me. I came into this project late. I put in the variance application for the 53 square feet. Tom looked at it and said, you should come in and look at the original building permit package, and I think it's closer to 200 square feet. So that explains the revision. Also, I just want to be very clear, this is attic space today. If you walk into this house, it is attic space. It is not finished, it is not a bedroom, it's not operating as a bedroom. So I think that's very important to know. And Tom and I just spoke, and Tom said, you know, he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, but he can speak to that. Anyway, Mr. Bragman's an attorney. He's not educated in architecture. So I'll give him a little bit of leverage. But the dormers are 3 by 5, and not all of that is head height appropriate. So 3 by 5 is definitely not 75 square feet. Not math, but that's not correct. If you look at the original building permit plans, his testimony sort of stated that something has changed and something has been expanded. The house and its volume, the envelope, what we'll call it, the roof and the sidewalls in the area of this building are the same from the building permit. So whether this board grants the variance or not, or whether this was built without, you know, without a variance, without coming to this board, the dormers are there. They were permitted by a building permit. The roof is there. The sidewalls are there. There is no change to this application. So the idea that somehow that changed the entire volume of the, let's call it the rear of the house, there's sort of 2 volumes. The entire volume of the house, if you look at, if you look at the A2 drawing, this is the back of the house, what we're talking about. This was demolished. Fence post to fence post, roof to foundation, this was gone. We're not talking about the existing situation. So that was all rebuilt in the current volume that you see. I guess the hardship he's claiming for his applicants is visual, although I would put on the record that the visual impact of a building permit versus the variance in this situation is the same. We could withdraw this variance application, keep it as attic, and there's no change to the dormers. We're certainly not removing dormers that were permitted under a building permit. That being said, I don't want to be an obstructionist, and we never want to be a bad neighbor to somebody. I would have hoped that the neighbors would have said, wow, you didn't tear this down and put some modern, not that there's anything wrong with modern, and you kept this historic house. Wow, we're so lucky to have this next door to us. Also, a $4 million project. As scary as it is, we're running about $1,200 a square foot in construction right now, so $4 million doesn't buy you very much. That's not a huge budget. Most budgets on new construction, I would say, is probably in the $8 to $15 million range, for whatever that's worth. But that being said, we're happy to be good neighbors. They want us to put in some trees to obstruct the dormers that would be there anyway. We're happy to do that. We're not taking them off the building, but maybe some mature trees would improve their view. We'd be happy to have the board put that in as a condition.
So, just a question. So it's currently unfinished attic space?
Correct.
And if it was left as unfinished attic space, there would be no need for this variance?
Correct.
What is the height of the structure, the whole structure?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I would say it's probably in the 30 range. I don't know, but I could get back to the board. I don't want to say something that's incorrect. Oh,
It's on here.
hang on.
Your eyes are probably better than mine. I'm trying to read it.
I can't. I'm not gonna lie. I can't read that, but it's in your file. It's the existing height. It was the existing height of the existing house, and it's conforming to village zoning.
So it's a 3rd floor, but it's not outside the envelope of what's permitted
No.
Correct.
currently.
If I do, I don't know how to use it.
The original building permit.
Correct. The only change is there were dormers to an attic space in the building permit and the dormers to a finished space in this current request. And because the space, you know, there was the square footage discrepancy, the 53 square feet, that was sort of just me playing Monday morning quarterback and coming in, and then there was a lot of paperwork on this file, so it was Tom and I sitting down at the desk and scaling out the plans and saying, I think the variance is more like 205, taking the existing square footage from the old house that no longer existed and trying to figure that out. So that's the reason, and that was also one of the re-notices, because it was originally 53, which was incorrect, so we had to re-notice it for 205.
Thank you. Tom, do you have anything to add to this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I did misspeak moments ago when I mention that the space was converted to habitable space. It is indeed still unfinished. I got in touch with the office because I hadn't been in the building. Well, I was in the building, but not at the end here. So the space it remains as attic, and as of right, you are permitted to put dormers. So the dormers can exist for an attic.
34.
Any questions?
So I just want to make sure I understand. The applicant just represented that the building permit granted the structure that's there.
That's correct.
Leave aside
It's
the
use of
internal
it.
use.
It's the,
And was that building permit granted correctly, or was there
I believe it was granted correctly, because we were assured that there would be a wall off.
So the question is I just want to be sure I understand the matter before us, which is the conversion of the attic space to occupied bedroom space. And the dimensions of, I'm sorry, it's the dimensions of the bedroom before and after? Right. Sorry, I know it's not your.
No, I do have it.
But I
Okay.
was just ask the applicant if
Yeah.
it's not.
And I think we should keep this, we've got this material from Mr. Bragman today. I think we should keep the hearing open till next month.
I agree, concur with that.
I'm just,
I agree.
I'm not in favor of expanding third floors. Just in general, and I hear what Mr. Bragman's saying, not so much about the sight lines, but detriment to the neighbor. So I agree we should keep it open.
Any other comments? No? Okay, we're going to look. Mr. Bragman?
Belabor this, but the dormers are new, and they represent an expansion of a non-conforming third-story bedroom. So I don't think it's fair to say that, oh, it's totally okay to have the dormers there, because the bedroom, I presume, has been expanded. And if it's attic space, it should be walled off, and probably the village would, I would think, find it useful to have some kind of covenant that they could inspect, because it's adjacent to a pre-existing smaller bedroom and could very easily be converted to habitable bedroom space, which I guess is the application today, as I understand it. So, if it's really attic space, it would be, walled off with some kind of access to get in there, but you'd have to be able to enforce it. And, do you really need dormers in an attic space? I mean, people don't usually put dormers in an attic space. It appeared to us to be, the way this evolved, and I said it wasn't an accident, it wasn't an oversight. They were on notice. It appeared to us that they were expanding the bedroom. That's what that's why I gave you the whole record to look at. But we can continue to talk at
Thank you,
another
Mr.
day. Thank you.
We'll continue the hearing January 12th. Would you like to say something, Britt?
I would, I just want to repeat, the building permit that was issued for this property reflects the dormers and the exterior envelope as they exist today, and there is no change to that, and you can have dormers in an attic. The only benefit to the applicant here is to have that access light, air to those windows, and the impact is very slight, but I would welcome anyone to look at the file, to speak with buildings. We've had a dozen inspections, so the village has been in this space many times. And the building permit did have a wall. There is a wall there currently that separates the attic space from the finished space. So the idea that somebody would disregard the laws of the village and finish that, especially after a variance hearing, I think that's insulting. So we honor the code of the village.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll keep this hearing open. So we'll move on to the continuing hearing. We have the Maidstone Club, 95 Dunmere Lane and 50 West Dune Lane. Is the applicant here? Yeah, go ahead, Billy, please. Abigail was sitting off this application?
This was just this was the shoreline stabilization project. It was heard by the board for wetland variance and wetland permit. It had not received preliminary review by the design review board because it's a special permit. So it went to the design review board. They had no questions or concerns with the matter, so it's being referred back to the board now to close the record and act on it.
Any material changes or issues?
Nothing was changed. It's still the same shoreline stabilization with core logs and native vegetation.
Move to close the hearing?
DRB accepted it as is.
Yes.
Mr. Rose has a motion to close the hearing.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to Timothy J. Tiernan, 34 Sherrill Road.
I'm not on this one.
Alex?
Alex Paulson for the applicant, and I'm here with architect Chris DeSuno. So we submitted a revised request to you, a smaller request, more modest request. We would just like to add a covered deck off the back of the house. The deck has a small barbecue area and a fully enclosed outdoor shower. The pool equipment's going to be in a conforming location and a hatch underneath the proposed deck. And we were also be looking to add the small overhang proposed on the over the side entrance, the side porch there. The initial application had that covered terrace to the south of the pool. That's been removed from the request. So the new proposal asks for 2,639 square feet of lot coverage, where 2,225 square feet is permitted. So our request is 414 square feet of relief, of coverage relief, instead of 747 square feet of relief. So we went from a 33.6% request to 18.6%. I'll note that the porch it's roofed, but it's open walled. It's completely behind the house, shielded from the street. Obviously the Tynan's backyard, as you saw in the initial submission, is completely screened from the adjoining neighbors. So can't conceive of a detriment to the neighbors or an impact to the character of the community. Obviously the benefit to the Tynans can't be achieved any other way here. We're looking to basically add a fairly basic amenity to a house that they bought as is. They haven't touched a thing on it to date, but it sits on obviously a modestly sized parcel.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, thanks.
Any board members have any?
I just want to say thank you to Alex, Chris, and the applicant for listening to the board and making adjustments. I think this is much more in line of what we look for when we get these applications. And then, that being said, I don't have a problem with it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody in the audience? Okay, motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm going to sit off this application, Mr. Paul.
Nice comment.
Thanks.
Okay. Next on the agenda is Skylight East LLC, 94 Apquag Road. How are you?
And everybody, good. How are you guys doing today? Should I swear in again? Okay.
Address for the record.
Kelly Rosado, Land Use Ecological Services, 570 Expressway Drive South in Medford.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thanks. So we were last before the board in October regarding this application for deer fence on the property at 94 Appoquog Road. Since that time, we did submit a couple of items to the board, one of which was a letter and copy of this year's monitoring report for the Phragmites Management and Buffer Project from myself at Land Use, discussed the standards for permit issuance under Chapter 163, and also discussed the 5 points of the ZBA approval. And then the second item that we submitted was letter with accompanying photos and exhibits from the property owner. So I'm just going to go through very briefly the submission that I made, just to kind of highlight the main points here. First, standards for permit issuance under Chapter 163. Basically, will the project have an effect on public health and welfare? No. The fence is located on private property. It's within a buffer, and won't be visible to really anyone. Some of the board members did visit the site. The owner had prepared some kind of fence mock-ups to show exactly what is being proposed, and several alternatives. The two of the alternatives being those that are considered here, which fence in the buffer, either 2 rows of 6-foot high fence at an angle, or 1 single row of 8-foot high fence also at an angle. And then he also mocked up fence at 150 feet from the wetlands, just to get a visual of the various alternatives that we discussed at the last meeting. The 2 fences that are in the location proposed on the plan, the 2 alternatives are all but invisible. And like I said, won't have an effect on public health and welfare, won't have an effect on the character of the neighborhood. It won't have an effect on fishing or in-water habitats. The fence is landward of the wetland boundary, and it's landward of the highest observed water line at this property since 2018. It does provide protection for wetlands by protecting the buffer plants that the owner spent 5 years installing, maintaining, replanting, and protecting with the fence. The buffer vegetation protects wetlands by filtering runoff, and does provide some habitat value. It's sited in the location that's shown on the plans we submitted to maximize protection for those buffer plantings. Like I said, it's landward of wetlands, it's landward of the water line, it's within the buffer, so that it's concealed. Really, no one will know it's there once it's installed. So that's sort of the Chapter 163 standards. The ZBA has the 5 standards for approval, one of which being character of the neighborhood. And as I've said a couple of times now, the way the fence is proposed, it won't be visible. It won't have an effect on the character of the neighborhood. No one will know it's there once it's installed. But it will serve its purpose in protecting the wetland buffer. No other method is feasible to accomplish what we are proposing here. We installed the fence in 2019 originally as a best management practice with the Phragmites Management and Buffer Project, because the landscaping, the buffer, was getting decimated by deer. There's a significant browse pressure at this site. So when it was installed in 2019, the vegetation landward of the fence was able to grow and thrive. Vegetation seaward of the fence decimated. In 2020, the fence was relocated landward of the initial position at the request of the trustees to be landward of the water line of the pond. So it's in the current location that it is today. Same thing happened. Vegetation landward of the fence, fine, growing, healthy, robust. Vegetation seaward of the fence, gone. If there's another method to protect the buffer vegetation, we'd be welcome to it. But in reality, we don't know of one to protect those plantings. In the packet, I did also reference some of the DEC, what's in the DEC deer management report, and basically that deer find the most abundant food sources to be edges or transition zones between forests and open habitats where there's an abundance of low woody and herbaceous vegetation, which is exactly what is in the property's buffer. So we are acting to protect that. One thing I just want to also point out, there was some discussion and questions at the last meeting about whether we need the fence. Is the deer browse pressure really that much? Yes, at this site, it seems to be. Like I said, every time we've moved to the fence, the vegetation seaward of the fence has just been decimated. The vegetation landward has not. So there's also photos in the owner's packet that show the conditions on the beach with heavy deer traffic. We've seen deer all along that stretch out when we're out monitoring. The owner's seen him when he's out there. So they definitely want to get in here. There is a significant browse pressure. There are other buffers around the pond that may not have that kind of pressure. They may have their vegetation intact. It may or may not be the target vegetation. I don't know. But I do know that for this site, this buffer, there's a pretty heavy browse pressure and it needs to be protected. The next standard is whether the variance is substantial. We just heard a variance granted for 400 and change square feet of coverage on a property, beyond what the code says. This application is for a fence. It's for a fence that, if needed, could be removed in a couple of hours. It's not a forest structure. It's not a permanent, impervious covered structure that creates runoff or alters flows of water or anything like that. It's a fence. So.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? I don't think we approved something. We closed the hearing.
Oh, sorry.
And
My apologies.
And that's significantly different. It's timber frame.
Sorry,
Which
yes.
is the historic kind of root of,
Yes, okay, so.
of the village.
My apologies. Either way, it's not a structure, it's a fence. And it's a woven wire fence, and again, something that can be removed in a matter of hours. And does not have any of those effects, whether or not the board approves that other project. The next condition is whether it would have an impact on physical or environmental conditions. Yes, it would protect the buffer plantings. So it would help maintain the native vegetation that the owner worked for 5 years to establish. The owner has spent several $100,000 to remove invasive Phragmites, which the village of East Hampton, the town of East Hampton, the state DEC, everyone encourages to improve habitat conditions, to restore what was there before development. This is something that we are working to protect. We're not looking to do anything other than that. Protect the vegetation. And in the packet that I submitted, there is a reference to the New York State Salt Marsh Restoration and Monitoring Guidelines, and it specifically talks about Phragmites management being a priority. It is a highly invasive species. It does, we've all seen it. It colonizes areas of Georgia Pond, becomes a monoculture, and provides very limited habitat for anything. What we've installed here is a buffer that has numerous native herbaceous and shrub species that provides various habitat for things like monarch butterflies, the seaside goldenrod, or yellow-rumped warblers, the bayberry berries in the winter. It provides winter cover for those overwintering birds that are in this area, as opposed to Phragmites, which does none of those things. So does it impact physical and environmental conditions? Yes, positively. There's no negative impact of having the fence here. And again, part of that is because it's not visible. And the last standard is whether the need for the variance is self-created. And this one is both yes and no. So the owner did undertake this Phragmites management project, again, to improve conditions along Georgia Pond, improve habitat, all good things. So yes, he created the need, or he created the buffer on the property that he wants to now protect. He did not create the deer overabundance. As to quote from the East Hampton Deer Management Report, uncontrolled explosion of deer. That is a problem throughout East Hampton and the East End. So that question is, again, both yes and no. The gist is this owner put in a undertook a Phragmites management project, removed a highly invasive species, put natives in all along the shoreline of the property, and is now looking to protect them. those species as well as all the landscaping all throughout the property. The project meets the criteria of both Chapter 163 and the ZBA. And in answer to some of the questions raised last time, yes, the owner has hand-pulled Phragmites shoots that have come up on occasion on the property and will continue to do so because, like everybody else, he does not want it to come back. And then in the owner's packet as well, there was reference to a precedent. That was a discussion last time as to whether if you approve the deer fence here, that is going to then lead to an explosion of applications. There was a 2019 application that granted deer fencing within 150 feet of wetlands that was approved and didn't lead to an explosion in other fence applications. We don't believe this one will either. Reasons that are outlined in the owner's packet. This is a unique situation. It's there are several conditions here that either don't exist on other sites or that make this property just susceptible to the browse pressure that we need to protect it from. So that's the gist. Like I said, if you have any questions about the submissions, I'm here. The owner's here today as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions or discuss anything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Billy, would you like to say anything? Do you have anything to add?
Not necessarily. I mean, I
Presented the
provided the
memo.
board with my comments at the last hearing, and my position hasn't changed on the application. So
Can you just, can I trouble you to refresh? Got in late last night. Can you just summarize your position again?
Sure. So the Phragmites removal project that was undertaken here is appreciated. It's a great thing, and it would be nice if more homeowners around Georgia Pond conducted Phragmites removal. Phragmites in and of themselves do act as a buffer. So the removal of Phragmites and replacement with, just a lawn or a non-native landscape is actually probably doing more harm than if you than removing Phragmites and putting in a buffer, which is why the village has encouraged the replacement with buffers. So we've also allowed and permitted temporary fencing to protect the plants until they're established. And then once the plants are established after a period of growing seasons, it's typically 2 or 3 growing seasons, the fencing is removed, and you kind of let nature take its course. So in this case, it's been a fairly long process of monitoring the buffer, ensuring that the dead plants were replaced, ensuring that the weeds were weeded out. I've been back to the property multiple times until we were prohibited from entering the property. And so it's been a lot of give and take with the applicant, which is appreciated. That said, I think there is some precedent value with this. A 6-foot deer fence, 5 feet from a wetland, I think, in response to somebody installing a buffer or removing Phragmites, you can certainly expect that this is going to be used as an example for similar projects to be undertaken. And I don't quite make the connection of if the deer browse is so heavy right up to the edge of the fence, I'm not sure how it's not visible by anybody. If all the vegetation is going to be gone up to the fence, you might not see the fence from this property, but you'll see it from across the pond. You'll see it from on the pond. And I think, lining Georgia Pond with 6 or 8 foot deer fences 5 feet from the shoreline, I would just caution you of that. So I don't know the case that was referenced in terms of, where the board had granted a variance for a similar deer fence.
That was going to be my next question.
I missed that in the submission. I know of fences that have been approved within the wetland setbacks. To me, it's a case-by-case basis. But I think this one in particular, I don't think they're apples to apples, but I don't know the situation, because I would know of it. But I don't know offhand, I can't think of one. That said, we've had other Phragmites projects that have been undertaken where, temporary fencing was installed, it's been removed, and, the buffers are still intact, and the neighbor immediately north is one example. Same technique, excavation, revegetation, and the buffer still exists. Walter Wheel on the other side of the pond, same thing. They actually only used a wildlife fence exclosure, which was to keep the ducks out. That buffer has been fairly successful. So, in any event, that's, I think there's some room for compromise. I'm not suggesting that the fence, you know, he install a fence at 150 feet of the setback, although technically that's the fence that's supposed to legally exist for the swimming pool enclosure. But I just think putting it 5 feet from the boundary of the pond is, I would just caution the board. It's up to you, your decision, but I would just caution you that I think that's definitely going to be a precedent-setting act.
I have a couple of comments. Thanks, Billy.
I have just one more question, and this involves, as this is to you and the applicant, I'm not sure who, but the irrigation rules adjoining the pond are consistent with the ones we've seen in Hook Pond and other places around Georgia Pond as well, which is no in-ground irrigation. Is that just? Can you just refresh us?
So within 125 feet of a wetland, landscaping and fertilization is prohibited. Typically in the buffer area, we allow temporary above-ground irrigation, which is removed after a period of 2 or 3 growing seasons once it's established. You know, with the concept of you're trying to, you know, you're letting nature take its course and you're not pumping all that water through the system that's going to, you know, expedite, you know, nitrogen and other elements from getting into groundwater.
I understand. My question to the applicant is that's being abided by within the context of this property? That's just a question. Yes or no, or if not, why not?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No, absolutely. And I just want to point out just one thing. So when we talk about where the fence location is, it's not 5 feet from the edge of the pond. It's about 30 feet from the edge of the water. It's 5 feet from the wetland boundary, which is within the vegetated area. And that's at its closest. There are other areas that it's 10 feet or even more than that. It's it varies. We didn't want to have a fence that zigzagged all through the buffer, and we tried to kind of make it curve and flow with the buffer, but I just want to point that out.
Okay. So I have some comments. The Phragmite removal is great. It's great for the pond. But, you know, it also substantially improves the applicant's view shed of the water, which is one of the reasons you buy on the pond. With regard to what the board's to consider for the factors, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties, allowing the fence will push the deer onto the neighboring properties. I noticed the neighboring properties did not have deer fencing on them. Across the pond, there was no deer fencing on them on the pond side. And I do believe it would lead to other properties as a precedent requesting deer fences. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue, the fence should be where it was originally approved in a conforming location. The conforming location is feasible. So you do have a alternative spot to put it. Whether it's substantial, it's over an 80% ask. The variance is at least 80%, depending on whether you call it where it is or 5 feet from the pond, etc. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood or the district. Well, it's going to have an adverse impact on the environment. The deer, like it or not, are part of our environment, whether it's exploded or not. They're wildlife. The fence by design is meant to impact the deer. If everyone around the pond puts up these fences, you're pushing either the deer into the pond and starving them, or you're eliminating the deer from a source of water. And again, I note that I didn't see deer fences to the left or the right when I was standing facing the water on the neighbor's property, nor did I see it across the street on Cove Hollow Farm. And I do agree it's a yes and no with the self-created. So those are my thoughts. I don't think there should be a deer fence on the pond side of the property. However, as a compromise, I would be willing to support a deer fence that is landward of the no-mow zone. So landward of the no-mow zone, not landward of the buffer, landward of the no-mow zone. So, otherwise, the application in its current state, I would not be able to support.
Can I just ask, the issue was raised, you referred to a precedent, and the precedent was, can you just alert us to what that is, so we have that?
It was 30 West End Avenue, and it was in October 2019. It was in the owner's submission packet, and there was a link, I guess, to the ZBA's hearing or decision or in that.
Thank you.
I'd like to just make a couple comments.
The applicant. Oh, okay.
I did go see this. I did see there's the existing fence kind of down near the water. There was not a lot of space for the deer to walk through without being either in the water or on the bank, and that bank has seen quite a bit of travel, just because of the marshland the way it is. In taking into account something maybe Billy said, looking for some type of compromise, I think I would be comfortable. I know there were two different types of fencing in the buffer zone. One was an 8-foot on a 45-degree angle, and then one was two sections of 6-foot on a 45-degree angle. I preferred the 6-foot one, and what I would ask is the board to consider keeping it kind of just inside the buffer, following the buffer line on the property side. One that would allow, no one would be able to see it from the water or from Cove Hollow Farm. The other is the property owner themselves would not see that fence as well. It appears that this whole buffer area, as Billy had said, has grown in extremely well, and obviously that's credit to the applicant who has been kind of replanting and monitoring all of that, which I commend you on. But that would be my recommendation. I don't know if anyone else shares my feeling, but I think it's a compromise that, one, it gives the buffer zone back to the pond area and the wildlife, and then on the other side, it actually makes it so the owner does not see the fence because of the buffer zone.
And so you're talking about on sort of the just seaward of the shrubs, where the rows of shrubs are?
Yeah, so running right along the edge of that.
Okay, that would be acceptable as a compromise, absolutely.
Does anybody else have anything
I would support
to add?
I would support a compromise like that.
It sounds like a reasonable compromise.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's reasonable.
Okay. Then do I have a motion to close the hearing?
Leave it open for written submission, right? Because they have to amend.
Yes.
Yes, so we
Close
will
the
submit
public
updated site plan. Do we need to leave the hearing open, or can we?
We can close it and leave that just open for the written submission, correct?
We've done that before. That's okay with Tim.
Motion to close the hearing.
If you're comfortable with the level of specificity, or, if you wanted to see what comes in as the amended plan.
Yeah, let's leave it open then.
Let's see
Okay,
the
we'll
plans.
we'll leave it open if you can get us that new drawing and a description of the fence itself as the only fence that you're going to use.
Yes, absolutely.
That would be appreciated.
And that's the two 6-foot rows at a 45 right inside the shrubs.
Yes.
All right, you'll have that next week.
And just one clarification, this remains a no-mow zone. Correct?
Yes.
For regulation, sure.
And I don't know if you want to take that, that was just a sketch that I drew a line.
yeah, that would be
If
great.
helps.
Professional sketcher as the.
Thank you very much.
Not with this point on this pencil. So we will leave that open, and next I would entertain a motion. to
So
close
moved.
the hearing.
I move motion to adjourn, to close.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.